Bonjour. Mes amis, excusez-moi, je ne pourrais pas m'expliquer en français. Merci de votre compréhension. Amigos da língua portuguesa e espanhola, eu peço a contribuição e a colaboração de vocês para que nós possamos fazer esse estudo na língua inglesa, uma vez que nós estamos representando o Conselho Espírita dos Estados Unidos. Good morning. Good morning. I would like first to start by thanking God for this wonderful opportunity to be here sharing with all of you the Spiritist teachings in the most spoken language in the planet Earth. Today we are going to talk about family ties, the solution for a better society. I would like to start by remembering a Jesus passage when he was in the middle of the crowd, and in the middle of the crowd, someone called out, saying, "Here are your mother, your brothers who seek for you." And he replied, "Who are my mother and my brothers? Here are my mother and my brothers. For who shall do the will of God is also my brother and my sister and my mother." If we ask about this question, what did Jesus really try to tell us? It could not possibly be that Jesus was incentivizing us to be against our own family members. But he was truly bringing a unique conception of family, the true spiritual universal family, as we are here gathered together this morning in a true family gathering. But let's try to understand a little bit deeper. So let's try to recall the conception of family in a broader view. When we think about family, we ask ourselves, what are the possible conceptions of family in the universe? Are they as similar as the one that we are nowadays thinking about before we talk about family on the planet Earth? And we have a good reference for that in the Revue Spirit, when Kardec, receiving the messages and compiling them on the Spiritist Review, he gave us this idea of what would be society organization on our solar system, for example. So the spirits in 1860 told us that in Mars, for example, in Mars, families were gathered together for survival because it was an inferior planet compared to Earth. Compared to that, we have Jupiter, when the spirits mentioned that Jupiter instead was the model of society for us in the solar system as a more evolved planet. Now let's talk about our planet, the blue planet, in all the current transformations. So on Earth, how is family doing on Earth? How is your family doing on Earth? How are you working in your family on Earth in the current days? So thinking about that, if we do a quick overview on the historical aspect, we know that in ancient times, from cavemen or the natives in our planet, family was mostly for the survival. Affection wasn't well expressed. And still nowadays, some of us are still behaving that pattern, which is a more rude manner of dealing with one another. But then we evolved anyhow. We're not at the most, at the top of the level for family relationships, but we certainly evolved. So this is for the ones that we usually hear saying they are skeptical that the world is evolving, and we say it really is. Because just make a quick look at the history and you see that we evolved very much. And talking about more modern times, we have families in a more traditional way, as a psychologist would say, in which they would be organized as mother, father, brothers and sisters, grandparents, uncles and aunts. But nowadays we have a different kind of family, which is named the non-traditional families. And the non-traditional families are the ones, like, for example, formed by grandparents and children with no parents, either because they died or because they cannot deal with that. And I have a quick story for that. I have Chinese friends at my work at University of Maryland. And because of the quick pace that we live, and sometimes crazy that we live in the United States, they cannot deal with their young children. So they send their children back to China so their grandparents, the children's grandparents, can take care of them in a more peaceful way. So this is an example of a non-traditional family, or single parents, or divorced parents, or families that are formed by homosexual couples that adopt children. These are the current models of families that we have nowadays. And then we may be asking, is this right? Is this wrong? How would we know the answer? Only if we understand human nature. So, who are we? What is this human nature that underlies family members in general? So who are we? We would say that at the very beginning of human reasoning, we started saying, as Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. And due to that, for a long, long time, we truly believed that being a human meant thinking. If I think, I am. If I'm smart, if I'm intelligent, then I am. So this is what built up as the intellectual quotient. But very, very recently, we found out that computers also have intelligence, and animals. So this is not the factor that distinguishes us from one another and makes us get together as a family. Then more recently, Daniel Goleman, in 1995, he proposed that we understand human nature from a different perspective, which is from the emotional perspective, when he proposed the emotional quotient based on the emotional intelligence. So then he was stating, based on the very recent findings of neuroscience, the science that studies the brain, we can tell for sure that we are more than thinking beings. We are feeling beings. We feel. That's what makes us different. And he was telling about successful people that were distinguished by their emotional control. And he was basing most part of his research on the facts that neuroscience got to tell us that the narrow basis of emotion resides in the brain. As you can see in the picture, the amygdala, this very small portion of the brain, is the part of the brain that is mainly responsible for the control of emotions. And of course, as you may see on the left side, the prefrontal cortex, where we process the emotions in general. And later on, a great scientist nowadays, Antonio Damasio, he's Portuguese, and he's very well known in the United States. He's a distinguished professor at the University of Iowa. He concludes that we need to treat and educate emotion because we are emotional beings. And he states, my research has persuaded me that emotion is integral to the process of reasoning. And he concludes that society is not suffering from lack of reasoning, but from lack of emotional control and dealing with our emotions in general. But then again, we ask, is this all we are, thinking and feeling? No. Because we got to know that animals do to have emotions. They have the same structures we have in the brain, the same operating system for controlling the brain. Thus we conclude it cannot be it. So we have very recently Dana Zohar, who is also a very distinguished scientist in the US, in which she proposed that we are spiritual beings. She is a famous physicist at the MIT, and she proposed that we have also a spiritual quotient. And she says, this spiritual quotient is the intelligence that makes us whole, that gives us our integrity, the soul's intelligence, the intelligence of the deep self. It is our transformative intelligence. And this is very much close to what we're talking about at the Spiritist movement. The Spiritist doctrine, the Spiritist thought, Spiritism, gets together here with the same thoughts. Let's review it. Let's bring then the Spiritism thought on who we really are. Let's think about creation then. The universe, our home, created by the supreme intelligence of the world. God, as we name the supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things, and its two elements, the spiritual principle and the material principle, and their connection through the universal cosmic fluid. How does this interaction of spirit and matter happen, and why? We know that spirits are the intelligent beings of the universe, as stated in the Spirit's book. And matter is its companion, its machinery to make us grow as spirits, from spiritual principle to spirits. So we progress. This is a natural law. But how do we progress? We progress through the opportunity of the unity with matter, in which we would name incarnation. The purpose of incarnation is for this progression of our souls. And most of all, as beautifully stated in the Spirit's book, we evolve and we exist to play an important role in the universe. So here, my friends, we have a statement to give up on depression, because every single one of us is important in the universe. We cannot stay depressed at our home saying, I'm nobody, I'm nothing. We are all important, and if we don't do our part in the universe is not going to evolve. We are needed, and this is what makes us important. So talking about reincarnation, it's important to reveal that the way we reincarnate, how does the spirit incarnate and reincarnate? So we could tell briefly that the spirit that is enveloped on the perispirit connects to matter at conception, and conception, where the perispirit is immersed in the vital fluid, makes matter grow to gradual materialization, and then we are born. So this is the way we explain the reasons why abortion is not advised. We are free to choose for sure, but it's not advised. And we should not do it because there is already a spirit connected to the very first cell at conception. Then continue on that thought. We certainly have a reincarnatory plan. We reincarnate to learn more lessons. And here it's good to think about the fact that we not only reborn to repair, but we are reborn to learn new things. And learning new things is not easy. This is when we stop thinking about, oh, I am here suffering because I did something wrong past lives. No. Sometimes it's hard because it's new. Go to the gym, work out for some days, and you see it hurts. Right? So it's the same in life. It hurts because you're not used to. So not everything is about repairing, expiation, atonement. It's about learning. It makes more excitement in life. And talking again about reincarnation plan, let's remind ourselves that we planned and we were guided. We had experts working in our plan before we reincarnated. This is when we need to work on our complaints. Complain less. Be more open and understanding. And talking about the reincarnation plan, we quote Joanna de Angelis when she said through Divaldo Franco's mediumship, when the laws of reincarnation are known, understood, and applied, they can explain the most obscure enigma that the educator confronts in his educative process. Why are we talking about education? Because life is about education. And talking about that, let me tell you a brief story that the amazing professor Ian Stevenson at the University of Virginia reported in his book, Children Who Remember Previous Lives. He talks about a boy, and he named it An Embarrassing Domestic Secret Revealed. And he says that this boy was there at the family house. It was a child of 2.5 years old, and he hands the family guest a glass of water. When later asked to remove the empty glass, he makes this startling announcement: "I won't pick it up." Son of Sharma, a high caste in India. Then, in a fit of anger, he breaks several glasses. Can you imagine that picture? Have you parents experienced this kind of thing somehow? If you had, then we ask why, right? What is going on? Is my child going nuts? You're not the son of a rich man, you're my son. And then we give up on trying to understand and explore what is behind that statement. And then we got to know that this boy was the incarnation of a very rich family in India at that time. And he was one of the cases that Ian Stevenson studied. And the most beautiful part, we could say, is that by studying the child's behavior related to previous lives, Ian Stevenson concluded the same things that St. Augustine brought us in the Gospel Explained by Spiritism. When they say, let's study the child's behavior, and when you study it very thoroughly, you're going to observe that that child is bringing to the surface elements from previous lives. And what are those? So he says, mostly in unexplained emotions towards the family. Like what? For example, when we have unusual traits and behaviors. For example, interests that nobody else in the family has. For example, we have a family, everybody is a soccer player, and by any chance, that little young boy starts thinking about, oh no, I dream of being a pilot. Where is he bringing that interest from? We ask ourselves. This is what Ian Stevenson mentions. He also talks about fear as another way for us to study the child's elements from past lives. So like strange phobias in general, and fear of the darkness, or fear of looking at a picture in the bedroom and thinking it's gonna move somehow. Where is all that coming from? Or many other different kinds of fears. Afraid of the dog, afraid of spiders, and that could all pop up when the child is young, very, very young. We're talking about the first years of the reincarnation. Also preferences, and also different skills and abilities. And here we can talk about the great musicians. Talking about the pianists here and the great chorus of Goiânia, we can talk about the great musicians that since they were very, very little, they show their different skills, abilities, like Beethoven and Mozart. Where does all that come from? Certainly from reincarnation. And talking about that, we have to emphasize that the first stage in our lives, childhood, is the most important. In the Spirit's book, question 383, we have this important statement: a spirit is more impressible during childhood when the impressions it receives more easily mold its personality and therefore its progress. So how does that work? How does that really work? And I have to give you good news, because the neuroscientists are validating this statement. I don't mean they are spiritists. They aren't. But me, I'm a neuroscientist and I'm a spiritist, but I'm an exception for now. But they are validating the importance of childhood and saying in their own terms how plastic, able to be molded our brain is, and how that's going to be affecting later our lives in adulthood. So now we bring a very recent experiment that the Dr. Mark Smith was doing, where he found the importance of paternal care for the brain connections. He showed that physical attention helps maintain the architecture of the brain and possibly gain memory abilities. As you can see on the left side, there is a picture of brain cells, and those brain cells that are in blue are just normal staying, and the yellow ones show where there are cells that died. And these are brains from newborn rats that either had on the left side attention from the mom, or on the right side no attention from the mom, not that much physical attention. And you can see the more yellow spots you find, it shows that the brain cells die because of lack of attention. But don't think you're going to go back to your child and be symbiotic close to the child, because that's not also good. That's not good. But what is good is to give the normal, necessary attention to the healthy development of the little child. And we mentioned that because, as Kardec said in the Spirit's book, education is about attention, is about studying the child's behavior and coaching the child. Being a coach. He says education truly is the formation of characters and habits. It is the totality of acquired habits. When we talk about it, we understand then deeper that we are not talking about formal education, instruction, knowledge. We are talking about coaching of emotional cognitions, our spiritual side. To understand that a little deeper, we know that the focus of our education should be on the plagues of humanity. What are the plagues of humanity? Kardec asked the spirits in the question 785 in the Spirit's book, what is the greatest obstacle to our progress? And the answer was very straightforward. It was pride and selfishness. Now we think about it. What are we doing to our children, to our teenagers? We are telling them, yeah, get your highest degree no matter what and no matter how. You have to do it. This is most important. But what about their emotional and spiritual development? How are you coaching them on that? How are you being an example, role model for them? Then we have to quote also Dr. Edward Baugh that brought us the beautiful and truthful medicine, the flowers medicine, when he says that let the parent ever strive to encourage the growth of the higher self. He's not talking about, yeah, go there and do it. He's saying strive, meaning really putting everything that you have in yourself to do it with your whole heart and soul. And here, talking about higher self, we're talking about being less selfish, opening the hearts of ourselves and our children to the universal family. It's not anymore about my child, my family, but coaching our children and our adolescents to the big family, because that's our goal. The Dalai Lama says, I for one strongly believe that individuals can make a difference in society. Every individual has a responsibility to help more our global family in the right direction, and we must each assume that responsibility. The last phrase is the most important. Are we telling our children, you are responsible, instead of you're wrong, you're guilty? No, you're responsible. Whatever you do, it's going to have an effect. And if you don't pay attention, you have to take the consequences. So let's make the best that you can. Moreover, we would say that the foundation for that resides in the first family, the biological family, or the first family in a reincarnation that starts somehow with a marriage. Why do I say that? Marriage here doesn't mean signing paperwork, meaning, as the Spiritism says, marriage as the true union of two people. And it is certainly, as the Spirit says in the Spirit's book, one of the first signs that a social structure has developed. And for here, and our gratitude, and to demonstrate that it works for the ones that think, no, it doesn't work, we bring Allan Kardec and Amélie Boudet. Without their partnership, we would not be here today. Kardec could not possibly have done his work without Amélie Boudet. They were not considered a traditional family. They didn't have children. We are their children. As Jesus, Kardec truly followed Jesus because Jesus was also behaving in a non-traditional family because he embraced the universal family, the global family. He was not understood by that, as many of us aren't. As Divaldo Franco, Raul Teixeira, Francisco Xavier, and many others that are in a non-traditional family structure, meaning that we have to change our conception of family, see it in a broader view as a true union besides the signing of the paper. We don't mean that we are discouraging people to sign and commit to one another, but it should start from the heart, not from the paper. Not from personal interests as in the past mostly. And here we are going to finish this study together by bringing, it's going to take a little while, it's not going to finish right now, but in a few minutes we're going to conclude by giving us the tools to transform our own corporeal families into spiritual ones. What are we saying about it? We all must have experienced at a certain point in our lives that we live among strange people. Who is this brother of mine? I don't get it. We are so different. And my father, oh my. I have no clue whatsoever what I'm doing in this family. Haven't you ever asked this question? Yes, we all had. Is it normal? Yes, it is normal. Why is it normal? There is a book that we are translating, and we hope it's going to be coming out soon. Very important book. In Portuguese, they say Entre Irmãos de Outras Terras, Among Brothers of Other Lands. It's by Francisco Xavier and Valdo Vieira. And when they were in a trip in the United States in the 60s, they were receiving messages from North American spirits and Brazilian spirits, one of them, André Luiz, and they brought Ernest O'Brien, brought us a beautiful message on family. And it starts by saying, at the very moment we die, we get to do our accounts and see what we had done in this past reincarnation. And he starts saying, it's normal that we are reborn among past life enemies. It doesn't scare us. It's normal. We are evolving. So it's normal that we are being reborn among people that are different from us. So how can we transform the first foundation of love towards the greatest love, which is the universal family? How can we transform this family, the corporeal one, into a true spiritual family? We would start by saying we should believe in changes. That my father's going to change? No, that you can change. Because if I believe I can change, improve myself, then I can certainly believe that others can do the same whenever they want. It's not on us to push them because we all have free will. But why do I say that? And you say, no, I'm too old. I cannot change. As they would say in Portuguese, o pepino que nasce torto morre torto. And it's not true. Why do we say it's not true? We say that because, thanks God, very recently, Fred Gage, this amazing man, at Salk Institute for Biological Studies in California, in the year of 2002, he proved us that our brains, aging brains, are able to grow newborn neurons. So if you're giving excuses not to do anything and retire soon, forget about it. Because now it's your time to continue your learning experience. And while you were talking that, this is the environment. They started this work in rats. Of course, we cannot study the brains of humans. We cannot sacrifice the humans for that. So we thank the animals as well for letting us know of ourselves. But can you believe it? If that happens in animals, it happens to us. So they are saying, you see the little mice in the picture. They are living in an enriched environment, full of toys and challenges, roads. You see the two beans, the toys. And they compare these aging animals with the ones that didn't have that kind of enriched environment. And when they studied the brain, they saw that these animals that were exposed to challenging experiences, learning, stimulation and learning, enriched environment. These are cells in the brain, the red ones, the neurons. And the green one is the beautiful baby neuron that was born due to the stimulation. So this is an aging brain in a rat. Can you imagine ours? What we can do? Look at Divaldo Franco, 75 years old. Computers are nothing for him. He knows everything. He can give us a course on computers. Chico Xavier? And Chico Xavier was the greatest example, writing all the books, 92 years old and still writing. And thanks to him, we are here. So, we understand that all this would not be possible without the dynamics of the thought. The matter only expresses what starts in our thoughts. So how should I start to change my life? In my mind, changing my thoughts. How does that happen? Like this. We're spirits. We have continuous thought, believe it or not. Because some people I ask, I'm not thinking anything. You're not observing yourself because you're thinking something. You're not conscious about it, but you are. So we have to pay attention to those kind of unconscious thoughts. And you're thinking, and what happens when we are thinking here and now? We are manipulating this cosmic principle, the universal cosmic fluid that surrounds us all. And as Kardec says in the Genesis, as if our thoughts were our hands, we are forming matter in the universe, depending on our will. So you have to want to do that. Of course, quality, frequency, intensity matters in this kind of game. And then we have the condensed thought and the saturation of paraspiritual molecules, and certainly the materialization of our thoughts. So this is how changes happen in our lives. So believe in your improvement. Let's believe in our improvement. Let's believe in one another improvement. When we talk about our boss, for example, don't complain about your boss. Just be compassionate and say, what can I do best to make it easier for him? And as we mentioned recently at the Spiritual Society of Baltimore in one of the workshops, our boss is God. And our work actually is to work on our relationships, even at work, and believe in changes. Believe we all improve. Because our will is our driving force. getting to know, as we know in the Reviews Pihit in 1868, will is thought that reached a certain degree of energy. So the more you think and focus on that, you improve your will. So people they're saying, oh, my will is weak. No, think harder, and you're going to build it up. You're going to raise your level of will. But the golden rule of all this is certainly what Jesus brought us. The love your neighbor as you love yourself. Trying to understand this, we could spend here the whole day, but we can't. We have to finish soon. So, we have to understand that we need to love ourselves first. How do we do it? At the state that we are, we would say forgiving. Let's forgive ourselves for the mistakes. I think we are being too harsh on ourselves. It's human to make mistakes, but it's wise to improve ourselves, to learn from them. And forgiving ourselves, we talk about forgiving one another. Forgiving one another because I forgive myself. And here we just quote the time when Jesus was asked by Peter, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother when he hurts me? Up to 7 times? And he said, I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. 7. What is that all about? Then he continued talking about the parable of the unmerciful servant. And he mentioned that there was a Lord, and you all know that parable, but to make it short, the Lord had a servant, and the servant owed this Lord. And he brought the Lord, the guards brought the servant, and the servant asked for mercy. He said, please forgive me. I am being very busy. My family needs me. I cannot pay you now. Please forgive me. And the Lord is very merciful and released him and said, not only you, but your generation, you're all forgiven. He left. He left, went outside, and he saw somebody that owed him. And what did he do? He was very unmerciful. He said, now you have to pay me. You owe me. When people saw him doing that, they went back, talked to the Lord, and say, you forgave him, but he's not forgiving others. So what happened? The Lord brought him back and said, you're a bad servant. So you're not going to be released. This is what happens at the level of our conscience. When we are not being compassionate and forgiving, our own conscience is bringing this message. You're not going to forgive yourself. So for all the ones and all of us that are having a hard time to forgive ourselves, think about it. You could start also by forgiving others. And that's a feedback loop on yourself, a healthy one. When it's hard, pray. Because praying is the connection to our dear Creator. As Gandhi said, the prayer is the key of the morning and the boat of the evening. And for the ones that think, I don't know how to pray, it's so hard, it's easy because God is all-powerful, omnipotent, everywhere. It's just opening your door of your heart. Nothing much. Oh, but it's so abstract. No. Again, our friend scientists are showing us that when we pray and meditate, our brain is doing something different. All the different areas that you see in circle are areas that are differently being activated when we are seeing sacred images, when we are meditating, when we are speaking of religious words, or when we are experiencing religious emotions. And this shows us for sure that we are not doing something abstract. It's very real. Very real. That's why when we are religious in the true concept of the linkage with God, we are healthier. Not physically speaking only, but I mean psychologically, spiritually, we are healthier. And this is a beautiful study that Andrew Newberg in the University of Pennsylvania brought us very recently. Another key is the God at home. Look at this beautiful drawing that was made by a spiritualist medium in the 30 to 40s, the decades, 1930, 1940s. And she shows here two people united, as Jesus would tell us, and the mentors and guides around helping us all to be more united. So the God at home, as we would say, there at the Spirit Society of Baltimore, because of many American friends that don't come from a Christian background, we decided to rename it, instead of Gospel at Home, God at Home. Just to make it easier. It doesn't mean we don't acknowledge Jesus. We surely do. But just so people get more familiar with the idea that it's important for family members to get strength by getting together once a week, reading inspirational messages, praying for one another, and trying to raise their level of vibration and harmony so they can be more functional and be functional in their communities, their societies. And also, when we have a hard time doing that, you can do by yourself. This is a good element that would certainly help us improving our family relationship and help society in general. We also would say, when you have a hard time with a family member, let's follow what the Spirit said at the codification in the Spirit's book. When they advised us in the chapter 8 of second part of the Emancipation of the Soul, at the discussion, they say, let's do the intelligent sleep. What is that? They are saying, before you sleep, remember, your body lays down, but you're fully awake and active. This means that you could regain the society of other spirits superior to ourselves, talk to them, and gain instruction from them. Meaning that we could pray every night before we put ourselves to sleep and ask our guides and mentors, please, Jesus, God, whoever you feel more comfortable. We know everything is on God, so whoever you say, it's going to go through Him. But most important is to say, please help me understand this troubling experience that I'm going through. Why don't the spirit doctors help us? They do. They get together, psychologists, doctors, put family members together in a meeting like a counseling meeting and try to make us in a dynamic understand one another more. So it must start from our will to improve ourselves and one another. So the intelligent sleep would certainly be the tool. And to wrap this up, we would like to bring the inspirational saying by Jesus. When it's hard, ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you find. Knock, and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives. He who seeks finds, and to him who knocks the door will be opened. Let's understand about the three verbs. Ask. In order to ask, you need to know what you want. So you have to think. Seek. Once you know what you want, you ask. And then you search. So you have to do something as well. Move. Where I want to go. Right, left, north, south. And then once you know, you find a door, knock on the door. What does that mean? Knock. But let's picture it. You're knocking, but you have to wait. Some people don't knock, they go away. You have to knock and wait. What does it mean wait? Patience. We have to learn it. I know it's hard, but we have to learn it. Patience. And for the ones that are saying, no, it's not going to work for me, Jesus continues, for everyone. So you're included. We are included. Everyone, no doubt about it. If we ask, we receive. Because if you know what you want, you'll receive. That's what he's saying. If you really search and move yourself, you're going to find it. And if you really knock and you're patient, somebody's going to open the door for you. And this means that here, right here, are my brothers and my mom. For who shall do the will of God is also my brother, my sister, and my mother. And meaning, will of God means love, charity. And for my friends in other countries, the best practice to our universal family is to bring this wonderful Spiritist doctrine to our brothers and sisters in their countries, in their own language. Please make your efforts. Let's do the will of God, and we'll certainly go from our corporeal families and build up our spiritual, loving one. Thank you very much.